when professionals work as a team and collaborate, then the client's assets are always, getting the highest and most efficient use as they're doing things. When you're working in a vacuum and just swimming in your own lane, you can't know whether you're making the right decisions because, in planning, whenever you push on one button, there's reaction someplace else.
Welcome to Rochester Business Connections, powered by Balbert Marketing, LLC, where I get the chance to chat with Rochester, New York's very best business owners, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders. I am your host, Ben Albert. Don't forget to subscribe, and remember, we don't do advertisements. My fee for this show is simple. If you gain value from the episode, personally share with a friend and explain your favorite part. Let's get started. I am here with Michael Palumbos. Michael, what's up? How are you?
Great, Ben. Thanks for having me. How are you?
I'm excited, man. We just chatted before this. The energy's high this morning, and you are a man of many activities, many talents. You're the owner of Family Wealth and Legacy. You're the host of the Family Biz Show, and you have a new planning professionals network that I know very little about. I think Rochester knows very little about so far. So I'm tremendously, excited to start there and talk a little bit about this professional network. Before we get there, I just want to give you a second to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do at Family Wealth and Legacy.
Sure. So Michael Palumbos, Family Wealth and Legacy right here in Rochester. Family Wealth and Legacy is a business consulting, family office services, business exit planning organization, and we dive a lot into family dynamics. Our typical client is family-owned, multi-generational construction industry related, is the vast majority of the families that we serve. And typically it's, we get called in when, the owner or there's a transition getting ready to happen, or they know they need to happen, or in order, there's 5 family members in the next generation. There's only 2 in the generation that's currently leading the company. And in order to keep the same, level lifestyle for the next generation, they need to grow the revenues and profit within the business. So that's what we do.
So Family Wealth and Legacy is almost the umbrella, and then is all these other endeavors basically fall under it, or?
Yeah. So basically what happens is it's more, services that we provide. So, a traditional financial advisor, wealth manager comes in and manages the assets. And, in today's world, just use simple numbers, charge 1%, of your assets under management to make everything work. Mm-hmm. And we looked at that model and said, when you're serving a family where, you're managing $10 million or $20 million for the family, even if you start discounting those numbers, right, that's an awful lot of money. What's the value you're bringing? Mm-hmm. So we added additional services so we could really impact the family from, estate planning and tax planning, the investments, retirement planning, but mainly on their largest asset, their business. And so it's not just how can we do, buy, sell insurance and make sure that we help them with the transition, but we became certified in business coaching so that we could help them put a business operating system together so that they could, either 1, work less, or 2, make more, or maybe a little bit of both.
I like both of those. Work less, make more, but ultimately be more efficient, be more effective in their business. And wow, this is the kind of conversation where I don't know what road to take, because we can have like a 3-parter. But sure. Right in the front, I did want to talk about the Planning Professionals Network, because I know that just launched, right? That just launched. And when you first brought it up to me, I'll let you do the explaining, but I was like, wow, this is something that Rochester needs. This is something that's tremendously effective. And I wanted to do this. I wanted to talk about it right in the front, just in case anybody turns it off. Don't turn this off for at least another 10 minutes. What is this Planning Professionals Network, Michael?
Sure.
I'm super curious.
Sure. So, the history, real quick, is the Society of Financial Service Professionals was a national organization that's been in Rochester for many, many, many years. And for the vast majority of time, it was typically financial advisors, insurance agents that were part of this network, and they used it for, CE credits. You need your continuing education credits. And so they would bring in speakers and, continue to learn. And it was a way of mentoring, younger individuals as they were coming through their career. 20 years ago, it was not a choice. It was when you got involved with a financial services company or an insurance company, you joined either the FPA, Financial Planning Association, or the SFSP to become a member of an association. Through the years, associations have kind of, they needed to change. And, inside of Rochester, we started to see membership dwindling. The value proposition that National was bringing just was not there any longer. And National went to an a la carte menu. So that was, again, the Society of Financial Service Professionals, meaning that if anybody was part of the National Association because they wanted a discount on disability insurance or errors and omissions insurance, they could get those things on an a la carte basis. So that gave us the opportunity to look at things a little differently. And we brought in Causewave. I don't know if you're familiar with Causewave. They help nonprofit organizations here in Rochester do branding and marketing efforts. And so we hired Causewave. We had all the board members, some other members of the organization, and some non-members of the organization sit through. It was 4 2.5-hour sessions with Causewave to kind of say, who are you today? What does the market need? And who do you want to be in the future? And so it was a dynamic process. They did a great job of guiding us through these conversations. And at the end of it, what we realized is that, there is a need for networking among professionals in the planning industry. The planning industry is not, 20 years ago, you might have thought of a planner as that financial planner, the insurance-based person or an investment person. But today, when you really look at it, it's estate planning attorneys, it's business attorneys, it's CPAs and accountants, it's some of the charitable organizations and, the plan giving, professionals. And so there's a lot of different planning aspects. And, the one thing that was needed in our, what we discovered was, how do we get all of those professionals collaborating more effectively? And so what came out of this was, rather than the typical continuing education methods of being talked to, we, the place where we're coming from is we're taking case studies of families that have planning needs, and we're going to be working to create, bring this organization together where we have estate planning attorneys and, business attorneys and investment people and people that are focused on divorce planning, and get them in a room and put them into breakout groups, and then let them dissect the case together from each of their different aspects and each of their different professional, put that professional hat on, so you can learn from each other. And one, learn from each other, but two, learn how to collaborate maybe a little differently than the traditional method, which is, each professional in their own swim lane. And I think that the client benefits, and the people in Rochester will benefit, because when there is that collaboration, there's no decisions that are being made in a vacuum.
I like this. I mean, I know I worked at a pharmacy way back when, and you're not allowed to pretend to be a pharmacist. But the pharmacist started getting mad because since I couldn't pretend to be a pharmacist, I wouldn't answer any question, even if it was like the most simple, easy question that you didn't even need to be a pharmacist to answer. I'd just, you got to talk to the pharmacist. And I realized that if I learned a little bit about how they would respond, and the best little things like I have, clogged ears. The pharmacist is going to recommend a product that's going to unclog your ears. So having the best recommendation or being able to tee up the pharmacist put me in a more empowered space. And it sounds like by sitting down and walking through these case studies, well, you obviously can't give advice in a field that you're not allowed to give advice in, but you can at least understand what the advice might look like or how that collaboration might look like. So I love this concept of sitting down and everybody looking at the same case study and then kind of dissecting it. How would that work? Are you using just fictional studies or real life examples that people might not know about? How would that process look like?
Sure. So one, the CFP board, the Financial Planning Association, the SFSP, I think, there's some estate planning cases out there. So we're just finding the case studies that are out there that, somebody might utilize, universities that have, those types of programs, whether they be law or legal or accounting. They have, capstone projects that they have to do. Those capstone projects are based off of a case study. And so all the data is inside of there. So our plan is to grab those, and we have one right now that, we're getting ready to, unfold for people and to go through. So it'll be interesting. I do think as we, grow and mature, that it'll be fun to say, I have a case that I'm working live. Here's all the data without client names, without, without things going on, so that you can, they can collaborate. And the other thing that it starts to do is younger advisors will hear things that faster than they might have heard if they were just going out into the field and hearing, trying to do it on their own. So they'll hear it, inside of a sterile environment, so to speak. And then the other piece is that, as you're working with different attorneys or advisors or, accountants, you're going to get to know what their expertise is. And so, right. There may be several different estate planning attorneys out there. There are, but each one might just have a little bit of a niche where they flow into. I know one that's focused is family businesses, which happens to be my focus.
Yes.
And we just met each other. So we're, looking to, to build a different relationship than I might have done, with somebody who may have family businesses, but that's not always their focus. And does that make sense?
It does. I think there's plenty of food on the table. I like to collaborate with people that are what some people could refer to as a competitor.
Yeah.
But I know personally on this show, I've had multiple marketing professionals. I have a list of people that I still want on, but I don't want just to have marketing people. But every time I talk to someone who's maybe better at me than social media, or they've been creating brands for 20 years, I can take my agile perspective and just learn from what could be competition, but it's more a collaboration. So this is a group of people that are ultimately collaborating with one another, helping each other. How large is this network so far? Is it, I guess there's two questions. Is it the kind of thing where one person per industry, they own the slot, or is there unlimited people per, each specific industry? And what's the growth potential? What's the trajectory? Like, how's that all going to look?
Sure. Currently around 50 members.
Oh, wow.
And so we just, like I said, we started with where we were, and we just morphed into, the Planning Professionals Network. It's unlimited in terms of each different field. Today we're using Zoom for meetings because of the world that we live in right now. And the way that we would do it is we just create breakout rooms, and we try to get as many different professionals in each breakout room as we possibly can. When we go live, it'll be great. We'll just, sit at a table and have different groups. And the thought process, we're coming up on our first live event, in terms of running through the case study for a first time. We had a kickoff meeting where we just talked about the plans and where we're going. Now we're getting right into the meat of them. It's a 2-hour meeting. We have continuing education from New York State for for those 2 hours. So we're still getting the continuing education. And the hope is that we grow to an organization of 100 to 200 planning professionals, and we take up one of the country clubs and utilize that space and put everybody at different tables and really enhance the collaboration, the networking, and the learning. Yes. At the end of the day, that was one of the things that everyone that joins the Planning Professionals Network is a credentialed professional of some sort, or they're working on attaining a credential. So those are we're excited. We think that it can bring a lot of vibrancy, learning in areas where we might not know, and then go back to what you were saying about marketing people. Even within the world of financial advisors, my specialty is not the same as everybody else's. So if you start to learn, where those things are, then it's like, maybe I make an introduction, when it's not a good fit for my practice, I can make an introduction to somebody that I know, like, and trust.
100%. It makes you look better for making that great recommendation, that introduction. And I love that it's not just a network of people coming together for sales purposes. Like, we're here for a referral network to drive sales between one another, even if we don't know much about each other's businesses. Right. This is, let's collaborate on an education level so we can learn from one another, continued education. And obviously, in doing that, referrals and sales will come, but you're much more empowered that you know who to work with, your strengths, the other people's strengths. You guys get stronger together. This is going to be the pen and paper section of the podcast, where a lot of people that are listening already know that they're a good fit for this network, and they probably already taken notes. But for people like me that aren't in the industry, I'm going to kind of want to write down a list of who's a good fit for the network so I can make those introductions. And I know a lot of my listeners, they love to make introductions, so they're going to do that too. So we already went over it kind of a couple times, but can we make a list of the perfect industry professionals? Like, who's the best fit for this network?
Sure. So, in the attorney space, it would typically be the estate planning attorneys. And again, that magic word planning is in there.
Okay.
They're not doing litigation. That's typically, wouldn't be a good fit for this. But, on the estate planning side, tax attorneys that do tax planning would be a great fit. And business attorneys. And then, when we say business, it's, they help with, establishing, the type of business. They help with, the legal questions and buy-sell agreements. They help with, negotiating contracts. Those kinds of things would be, perfect. On the accounting side, again, it's the CPAs that, at least, 10, 20, 30, maybe even 50% of their business is coming from the business owner market space. That small business to medium-sized business, probably not the corporate, tax attorney or the corporate CPA, meaning, if they're doing accounting work or audit work for Walgreens or Walmart, that's probably not a great fit for this organization.
Sure.
And then it's, your fee only, your fee-based financial planners, that we don't, discriminate. We think that there's fee only can be a great method. And then we also think fee-based can be a great method. We even think that the commission, based advisor can be good as long as they're doing it from an ethical and, it's all about the client
first.
Have to be paid that way. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say, those people that are looking at retirement planning, looking at, estate planning and thinking about these things for their clients, anybody that's doing that type of work would be a great fit for this. and we'd love to have them join us.
Perfect.
One of the things, real quick, I'm sorry, if somebody does want to come and check us out, it's the planningprosnetwork.com. The website is still being worked on. We just switched that over. So if you don't get the information that you're looking for, they can just email me at michael.palumbos@lfg.com, and I'm happy to put them in the mailing list. Welcome to come to a meeting, the first one on us, and see if it's a fit and make sure that it works for you.
Yeah, and I'll make sure that is in the show notes. What's great is for all the listeners, we're recording this at the very end of September. It's going to come out in 3 weeks. So that gives you a little bit of a push to get that website updated within those 3 weeks. But regardless, I'll put your LinkedIn in the show notes as well so people can reach out, have a conversation there, email, check out the website. And wow, so again, the only reason I'm not taking notes is because I'm being present with you and listening, but I'm going to rewind, write down those industries because I know that I've got a lot of people that could benefit. I know the listener might be one of those people. If not, they know someone who could benefit. I'm curious about the case study thing. And
Sure.
What I mean by that is I just like testimonials and case studies. And I'm curious like what the solution would look like, whether it's a case, let's get very micro. So let's talk about talking about a case study. So we don't have to talk about the case study itself, but let's say there's a case study that multiple people are discussing as a group.
Yeah.
What does the resolution look like? Have you been part of groups like this? You must have, since this is part of this network. Have you been part of groups that have kind of dissected case studies? And what did you get out of it? How do you feel leaving it? How is that networking, dissecting experience look like? How does it feel? Tell me a little bit about that process.
Sure. I'll tell you my favorite time we did a case study. Metallica back a long time ago.
Okay.
Did a movie. It was called a documentary called Some Kind of Monster.
Right.
Okay. And so I happened to be part of the Purposeful Planning Institute, and Metallica was going through an implosion at the time. There was heavy drug use for some of the members. There was power, control issues that were happening. And they brought in a high performance coach, basically, a therapist who's not a therapist.
Yes.
And he worked with them over the course of a year, 18 months, to help them talk about what was going on, how they were going to bring new members in. And so what we did is the presenter would take clips of where the band was dealing, they were bringing in the new bass player, and they were sitting in front of the attorney, and the attorney was talking about how bringing him in and what his percentage was going to be and how he was going to protect the other members. And the band is like, dude, you didn't even ask us what we wanted. That is nothing like how we want to do this. And so, we had attorneys and planning professionals and therapists at a table, and we would all talk about it from our perspective, some of the things that were missing. And, I think that it's just a great movie to, I use it with family-owned businesses, that documentary, to get them to look at and say, even though Metallica isn't a family, when you're that close and you're doing that many things, you really do act kind of like a family. And they had an onboarding process for Robert Trujillo that, they gave him $1 million signing bonus because they were so excited for him to be joining the band. And they gave him 5% of, the band, his portion right from day one. And they're like, no, he's in, we're doing this together. And think about that from family business. A lot of times it's like, well, they're married into the family. I'm not quite sure whether we want to share, ownership in the family with non-family members or So there was a lot of really neat things that were happening inside of there. The fun part, like, is that case study. He'd play a clip, and then we'd all talk about it from our perspectives. In our first meeting at the Planning Professionals Network, we're doing a case study on the Adams Family Enterprises. It happens to be a family business.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's a 16-page case study. You've got Tony Adams Sr., Angela Adams, Tony Adams Jr., Rose Gray, who's married in. She's an in-law. It's Rose Adams Gray. Just fun stuff. And we're just going to go through. We're handing out that PDF so that everybody can go through it. It has, some tax statements. It has, income and expense, projections. It has the financials of the business. And so, we can look at this to say, what about the buy-sell agreement? What should we be doing? What about, estate planning documents? What should the family be considering? When we talk about transition from one generation to the next, what are the conversations? What about retirement planning? So it's, what about long-term care or survivorship planning? What if somebody dies? So there's lots of planning opportunities for all of the professionals to kind of get in and talk about it from their perspective and share and collaborate together.
It's what a collaboration. I mean, it's fascinating. I'll be honest with you. These kind of topics, generally I'll glaze over a little bit. It's not my industry, but I'm like at the edge of my seat, like almost like wanting to be a fly on the wall to hear these conversations. And I love how you take something that is dry and methodical, but then introduce these case studies to make it exciting, to make it fun, to make it interesting. I really want to be a fly on the wall for these conversations. It's I could even see it as like a movie or a TV show. It's fascinating.
Absolutely. It's funny is, my hope is that someday that, Rochesterians and the surrounding area, really get to know the Planning Professionals Network. And when they're hiring their professionals, they ask the question, are you a member of the Planning Professionals Network? Because we're looking for somebody that's collaborative and, open to working as a team, because when professionals work as a team and collaborate, then the client's assets are always, getting the highest and most efficient use as they're doing things. When you're working in a vacuum and just swimming in your own lane, you can't know whether you're making the right decisions because, in planning, whenever you push on one button, there's reaction someplace else. So if I'm spending money to take care of long-term care, so if I'm just selling long-term care insurance and that's all I do, when I take that money out to purchase long-term care insurance, that person might made a sale, but we don't know what the effects were for the family unless we're putting that into their whole holistic plan and really take a peek. There's some families that they'd be better off just rolling the dice and not purchasing long-term care insurance because, the amount of cash flow that they have just it may not be enough based on longevity in the family. And so you don't know.
You don't know. And I love the ripple it causes that you make the right, you're educated, you collaborate with the right people. So you make the right recommendations for your client. They do better. They become better people. They can help their family. They can run their business. Everybody's better in the long run. And since this is a local network, goes without saying, the entire community is strengthened by it. Is this just for Rochesterians? Is it Western New York? What's the size and scope?
Yeah, so right now, we have members that are coming in from the Lockport area, and probably the Geneva area is about the scope where we're at right now. Just it's because of the Zoom, you could be coming in from any place. So
Australia.
Yeah, exactly. But we envision just upstate New York at this point, and then we left it kind of open. If people want to open chapters in other areas, then, we would like to help them to be able to do that. Again, go back to that ripple effect. We're not here. We're not for profit, organization. So we're all about just, better, faster, stronger, help the community, help each other.
Better, faster, stronger. That's what I love to hear. And I want to hear a story, Michael. I want to learn a little bit more about you because I've said this before. We don't roll out of bed and say, "Oh, I'm going to be blank when I grow up." We usually want to be athletes or doctors or lawyers or musicians or models. Where'd you get
I wanted to be a neurosurgeon.
A neurosurgeon.
That was like junior, senior year of high school.
Okay.
And then I started to look at my SATs, and I looked at how many years of being to go to school for that. I'm like, yeah, that's not going to be me. But,
so you scratched being a neurosurgeon. Where does family biz planning? Where does this passion come from?
Sure. So I was one of those non-traditional students. Went to school at Hofstra in Long Island, came back, got into sales, just wasn't, I didn't finish, college the first go around, got into sales and realized I loved the people. It wasn't the sale portion of it. It was just, I liked dealing with people and, their wants and needs and just trying to help. And eventually, I started hitting glass ceilings. I started to get frustrated. I wasn't growing. I wasn't learning. Talked to my father, who was in the planning industry. He's like, you could come and do this. Matter of fact, I'll set you up with an interview with my manager. So I went for the interview, and he said, Michael, just based on the relationship I have with your father, knowing who your father is, I'll hire you tomorrow. But I have one question for you.
Ooh.
When a client asks you, where did you graduate from? How are you going to answer that? And what do you think that they're going to want to hear? And that was just like, oh man, he did it to me. So I went back to school. I graduated from U of R with a degree in economics. Really super proud of it. Love U of R. How I got there is a really incredible story. I did a 2+2 from MCC to U of R. I was planning on going to Brockport, happened to be in the financial aid office at MCC when the dean at the time came into MCC's, financial planning office, said, who's doing a 2+2? Raised their hands, who's got great grades, kept my hand up. And, there was one other question. I can't remember what he said, but he's like, come with me. And he took the other person's name. Wow. And took me up to his office, made a phone call. He said, looks at me, goes, what does Thursday afternoon look like for you? I'm like, I'm open. It was great. You're going over to U of R for an interview to finish up your studies at U of R. And the rest is history. I was like, I can't believe this just happened. And so I still to this day don't remember who the dean at MCC was at that time, because I would like to say thank you, because it really changed the trajectory of my career. I leave U of R and go to work in the copier industry, working for a Xerox agency, Zero Graphic Solutions at the time. For whatever reason, I didn't jump back right into Dad's business. I think I needed some time. I needed some experience, on my own. And I was successful doing that. I loved it. Became a sales manager in Syracuse, and basically, eventually said, all right, Dad, tell me more about what you do. And all of those feelings that I loved about sales and sales management and working with the people, you had simple relationships, you were in there to do one thing. So my father started to tell me, he goes, I get paid really well to do really good things for people over a really long period of time. And I'm like, tell me more. And so as I started to learn more and more about what he did, I just couldn't. I knew that that's the way I wanted. I wanted to be more impactful. I wanted to inspire change over a longer period of time, and really be part of a family's life. Dad and I had some dynamics being father son, and even though we were
Yes.
in different cities, I was watching these weird, strange dynamics happen between the two of us that I wasn't expecting. And so Syracuse at the time had a family business group. I joined that. They helped me. And from that point forward, I knew I wanted to be involved with family-owned businesses because, I just loved the complexity. I loved the different relationships. I wanted to make sure that people could always sit down at the Thanksgiving dinner table together. And so when I moved back to Rochester a few years later, my focus was always business owning families.
I love this. And it's funny, you go to college for this one purpose and then years pass and then you go a different route, but it all came full circle in the long run.
Yeah, and what's real interesting, Ben, is that degree in economics,
Yeah.
which in full disclosure, I chose economics because I had enough credits that was going to get me, my degree fastest. In full
That's what I did.
disclosure,
That's what
you did the same.
I went to two. I went to FLCC, MCC, and then I graduated in 4 years, even after
Okay.
going to two community colleges and changing majors twice. But how I did it is I basically went for a major that I already had a bunch of credits in, and it worked.
So, but I did, I enjoyed economics. I enjoyed, those things. And it really came, talking about going full circle in 2007, 8, 9, we all remember the financial crisis. Well, guess what? There was economic indicators that were leading up to show us, there's something coming. And I didn't know about them. And so when I went through 7, 8, and 9, around 2011 or 12, I finally said, what? I need to go back to my degree in economics. And so today, we work with a couple of economic think tanks so that we're, looking at what's the beat, what's the heartbeat of the economy, and what can we do to help. We don't try to time the stock market when we're investing for clients, but business owners, they need to know if a recession is on the horizon potentially. And you need to know, should I be maybe not putting more cash into my portfolio right now? Maybe I should be stockpiling the cash, looking for that dip in the market. Again, not timing, but just knowing that a recession typically pulls the market down. So we're not going to pull out of the market because that's too difficult to time that. But I might not put into the market right now. And October of 19, we were telling clients right now is the time to stockpile cash. We see a recession coming, potentially. We can't say that, but all the indicators had flipped and said, there's probably a recession coming in the next 6 to 9 months. And there we are. COVID happens, and that immediately threw us into, a recession at that point.
Yikes.
Yeah, and all those people that we were telling to stockpile cash, March, April, May, they're putting that cash to work. And so that really helped to boost their portfolios faster.
Do you talk about this kind of stuff on the Family Biz Show?
We do some. More often than not, we're talking with family businesses themselves and listening to their story. They're incredible. We've had, Seabreeze on, and, there's a family that has been through 2 pandemics. Seabreeze is around, and the family business was around during the Spanish flu. And they don't remember that. There wasn't stories about that, but just knowing that family did that and still here running a business, kind of cool. The other thing that's cool about them is during the pandemic, because they own the park, they could still go on the park. How fun would that be? It's kind of like I'm a Chevy dealer, so I get to drive every different, type of Chevy vehicle that's out there. But if you own an amusement park, the family gets to go on a couple of rides during the pandemic.
That's a good point. That's fun. A little bit of a vacation.
Yeah. And
Vacation,
then the other part of the Family Biz Show is we bring in specialists. So, and those are, they may be dealing with some of the technical things like the buy-sell agreements. They may be dealing with, ESOPs. We've had some great guests on the show, but a lot of times we're dealing with those family dynamics issues and talking about, what do you do when Dad's starting to show signs of Alzheimer's? or, the cognitive abilities aren't going, but dad doesn't want to retire. How do we handle that in a graceful manner? We're talking about, my brother is still upset because, dad bought me the new car and he only got the used car. And we're still dealing with that 30 years later. And it's impacting, how we run the business. Those are great and interesting conversations for a family to have. And, learning how to have complex conversations in a constructive manner is great practice for everybody.
It sounds like you're a therapist almost.
I wouldn't say that I am,
Right.
I love psychology. Obviously we don't practice that. That is not what we do. I know when to, what's the doctor say? Do no harm. Right. So we know when to back off on those things, but we also know who to refer to. That's the bigger thing, is that there are people that are trained in family systems theory, Bowen theory, or they just, they have a psychotherapy background, but then they've turned themselves into a business coach because they just found it so fascinating. Fun stuff. I did one episode with my parents. It was totally unscripted. And I had a family business therapist join us and to talk about their estate plan live on the air. And it was really a neat conversation to tap into some of the work that we do in an unscripted manner. And if I could do anything, remember, I would love to do more of these unscripted things so that people could see how that work really unfolds and what it's about.
Wow. And we dived into Family Biz Show. For anyone who doesn't know, it's a podcast, right?
Correct. Yeah.
And I can get it pretty much anywhere that I get my normal podcast.
Yep. You can get it on Apple, Amazon, wherever you get your podcasts.
And in a moment, we're going to go rapid fire. So I don't want anyone to pause this yet. But if you can continue listening without pausing, it sounds like you're already listening to this podcast. Or if you're watching it, again, the show notes. But go subscribe to that. Wow, like a raw conversation, unscripted. It almost sounds like a more realistic version of Dr. Phil.
Love it. I think there, we talk about, I think you could have a family business reality TV show.
Yes.
Really easily. I think it would be fun to do that.
I want to go rapid fire.
Okay.
This is just fun, kind of ridiculous, either or questions. People who listen to this probably are sick of me saying it, but it's a cross between Family Feud and Whose Line Is It Anyway? Where
Right.
Family Feud, we've got 30 seconds. You got to give the best answer possible. However, the points don't matter. The answers don't matter. It's completely subjective to whatever you feel. So there's no right or wrong answers. And if it's an either or, you can fill in the blanks, or whatever comes out of your mouth's fine.
Great.
All right. Now that we did the intro, Michael, coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Beer or wine?
Beer.
Favorite season?
Summer.
Music or podcasts?
Music.
Traditional books or ebooks?
Neither. Audio.
Audiobooks. Okay. Guilty pleasure, like favorite dessert?
Something with chocolate and raspberries.
Chocolate and raspberries. I love it. Longer form, because I kind of want to learn a little bit why, but if you were to recommend a book, a podcast, or maybe 3, what educational tools, aside from live conversations, live case studies, what educational tools do you use to stay chipper, just on a night at home?
I would probably recommend Ben Hardy's book, Personality Isn't Permanent, to somebody that's younger and just learning to adapt their life. I think you can never go wrong with the old standard of How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. And then just anything about positive thinking and mindset. Carol Dweck has a book, I think it's called Mindset,
Yes.
which all about the difference between a growth mindset and a fixed mindset. So I think those would be the standards I'd probably go with.
Yeah, that book by Carol Dweck, or whatever her last name is, Mindset, was Wow, it was eye-opening for me because what that taught me is I had a fixed mindset. And then once I realized that, just kind of like like admitting that you have a drug problem, I had to admit that I had a bit of a fixed mindset. And how can we reconstruct and get better and learn basically how to have a growth mindset? It's how you look at things. It sounds like sitting down with networking professionals, with industry experts, and learning from each other. That sounds like a great way to reverse your fixed mindset and grow with each other. So I love the connection there. I love the connection.
100%. Yeah, to your point, take Carol's book and then go read Personality Isn't Permanent. And
Oh, yeah.
you put those pieces together because so many times, people say somebody's personality is ingrained from the time they're 2 years old, and in hindsight, I would say I'm more of an introvert by nature, but I've become an extrovert through, the things that I do and, my desire to help and to serve family businesses. You can't be an introvert and run a podcast. It just, doesn't, the two don't work together. You have to, at least for the podcast, become that extrovert and, help to pull things out of people. And I would say that, my career choices have changed my personality and my decisions have changed my personality over time. That was really interesting for me.
It is fascinating. Introvert, extrovert, extrovert. We're usually not one or the other. Like, we're somewhere on the landscape, unless we do have something, in our mental framework where we're tremendously introverted, which is pretty uncommon. I find that a lot of introverts that learn how to be more extroverted are like some of the best podcasters, some of the best salespeople, some of the most intuitive business people. They might be the people showing up to be part of a group, to do that case study, not just because they like to socialize, but because they're trying to dissect every little thing. So, and then the extroverts are just kick ass because they know how to make people smile. They're charismatic. They're there. They're present. Their energy's great. So there's both of them's a win. So if we can find a balance of the two, oh my gosh.
All kinds of fun.
So tell us one more time, how do people stay in touch with you? How do they connect with you, make a friend, join the group, anything? It's in the show notes, but in case they don't want to go there, tell them.
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn, Michael Palumbos, and it's Palumbo with an S on the end. And you can go to our website, Family, Wealth, and Legacy, all spelled out.com. And then the Planning Pros Network.com is the Planning Professionals Network. And you can find me, just go to any of your podcast things and type in the Family Biz Show, and you'll get 30, 40, 50 episodes, to listen to and keep you busy while you're doing your workout or whatever it is that while you're driving, whatever it is when you're doing those things.
Yeah, I'm going to listen to the Family Biz Show myself. And I want to end with a bang because you have a podcast. You've done hours and hours of talking about this kind of stuff. And it's new to me, so I don't know every single question. I'm sure I forgot to ask something. And I'm wondering if there's any misconceptions, any case studies, any stories, anything that you have discovered through your podcast, through all your experience, that I wasn't smart enough to ask. Let's be honest. I didn't know to ask you.
Yeah. So I had a mentor that asked me, Michael, if you were during COVID, as everything was going on, if you were to retire tomorrow, you had all the money in the world and you never had to work again, what would you do? And I said, oh, that's easy. I would, go get in a cage with great white sharks and I would, do more diving around the world. And he said, then what are you waiting for? So August of 2021, I was at Guadalupe Island off the coast of Mexico in a cage with great white sharks. And I made that decision to start checking things off that bucket list because you never know when.
Michael, you got to drop the mic after that one. That's incredible.
Thanks for asking.
I appreciate you coming on. It's been a pleasure. Again, I'm going to go through my Rolodex and make some recommendations because I love, Rochester community education driven networks. That's ultimately going to help families, help businesses. It's a no-brainer that if you're intrigued by this, make a recommendation or join. And dang it, thanks again, man. Thanks for coming on the
This
show.
has been awesome. I really appreciate it, Ben.
Thanks for listening to Rochester Business Connections. Don't forget to share this, rate, and comment on your favorite platform. You can also email me, ben@balbertmarketing.com. Let's connect soon. Until then, keep thriving, everyone.
The content presented is for informational and educational purposes. The information covered and posted are views and opinions of the guests and not necessarily those of Lincoln Financial Advisors Corporation. Michael Palumbos is a registered representative of Lincoln Financial Advisors Corporation. Securities and investment advisory services offered through Lincoln Financial Advisors Corporation, a broker-dealer, member SIPC, and registered investment advisor. Insurance offered through Lincoln Financial affiliates and other fine companies. Family Wealth and Legacy, LLC, is not an affiliate of Lincoln Financial Advisors Corporation. Lincoln Financial Advisors Corporation and its representatives do not provide legal or tax advice. You may want to consult a legal or tax advisor regarding any legal or tax information as it relates to your personal circumstances.